Hello everyone, I'm Cassandra. I'm a homeschool advocate for Logic of English, as well as a homeschool mom of 3 young kids. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the language arts program, the Logic of English Foundations Level B. This is a walkthrough of the Foundations B program, and I'm going to be sharing what's new in the Foundations B program compared to what you may have seen in the Foundations A program, as well as go through an actual lesson in the Foundations B material so you get a really good feel for the program. If you are new to Logic of English, I highly recommend checking out the overview video of Foundations A through D, as well as the walkthrough video of Foundations Level A. Foundations Level B is going to be designed more for your kindergarten level student. Maybe you had a child that went through Foundations Level A and is moving into this program, or you could even have a child who has used a different language arts program and may be coming into the program. So for Foundations, there's only 2 entry points for the Foundations. It's either Foundations Level A or Foundations Level B. So even if you have a child who maybe their reading is more advanced but is still on the younger side and you're wanting to do the Foundations program, you still really need to start with Foundations Level B, because the information presented in B is really going to give them the foundation that they need prior to walking into Foundations Level C. During Foundations Level A, your child would have learned other lowercase letters. During Foundations Level B, your child is then taught their uppercase letters. So if you would have taught your child their cursive letters during Foundations Level A, you would want to continue and write into cursive for their uppercase letters. The same with manuscript. You want to keep with the same handwriting style from Foundations A through into Foundations Level B. If you have a child that is new coming into Foundations Level B, you have a couple options for how you can introduce those new letters for them. If, say, they don't know how to write their cursive lowercase letters, you can either spend a few weeks prior to starting Foundations Level B and just going through and teaching them how to write their lowercase cursive letters. Or the other option that you have is, as you're progressing through the Foundations B material and you are teaching them those uppercase letters, you can also teach those lowercase cursive letters alongside. So I would recommend pulling out the tactile cards and showing them those lowercase strokes and letters, as well as then going into then the new uppercase letter. And so you would be teaching those at the same time. And it's really great because the handwriting instruction pages included in the student workbook for Foundations Level B includes both those lowercase and those uppercase letters. And so that can really work well for students that are just coming in fresh to the Foundations B level. Prior to starting Foundations Level B, there is a section in the beginning of the teacher manual just to review all those single letter phonograms that would have been introduced during Foundations Level A to make sure your student knows all the sounds the single letter phonograms make, as well as practicing vowels and consonants. This is highly recommend for students that are coming into Foundations B for the first time to make sure you go through that. I like to, even for my students who have gone through Foundations Level A, I like to pull up for that first day all the phonogram single letter cards, and we just run through them and make sure that they know all their single letter phonogram sounds. So really recommend just making sure you are reviewing that material that they would have covered as part of Foundations Level A before jumping into Foundations Level B. New in Foundations Level B is the introduction of multi-letter phonograms. So phonograms that aren't just the single sound phonograms that they would have learned as part of Foundations Level A. So this would be, say, the example of A, 2-letter A, that may not be used at the end of an English word. And you can see I have 2 fingers up. This would be something during spelling analysis that then they would know that this is the A that has the letters AI on it, versus this one being A, again a 2-letter A that may be used at the end of an English word. So these are the types of multi-letter phonograms that are new and introduced as part of Foundations Level B. So now jumping into an actual lesson within Foundations Level B, I'm going to actually be using lesson 60. Now there are 40 lessons in the book, and after every 5 lessons is an assessment. So that would be the review you would do with your child. So this lesson, lesson 60, is about halfway through the book. So you can see in the beginning for skills, it's going through what your child is going to be covering, as well as the materials that you would need. I like to pull out my materials, maybe it's the night before or just right before the lesson, just so that they have them on hand when teaching versus trying to pull those together as I am in the middle of teaching. So you want to gather those materials before you start. For the beginning of the lesson, the child is going to be learning how to write their uppercase C. Now, when you are going into the Foundations program, you will need to select if you are going to be using the manuscript or cursive. So for the cursive handwriting program, you would receive the cursive B workbook versus the manuscript, you would get the manuscript B workbook. So for Foundations B lesson 60, you would use for cursive your green cards. These have a sandpaper texture on the front of them. Or if you were using manuscript, you would be using the red cards. So for the letter C, you know, even though my child has gone through Foundations level A, I like to go back and review those lowercase letters. I like to start with the strokes, so I will pull out our stroke cards. So for our lowercase C, we learned in Foundations A that we use a curve and a roll. So we would pull out the curve stroke. So I'd have my child practice their curve stroke by tracing it with their finger, and then we'd also practice our roll stroke. Then after that, I would have them just practice some of their lowercase c's by saying, okay, we're going to curve, and then we're going to roll. And then we would then move into the uppercase C, which is part of the lesson for the day. And so then we would say you're going to start halfway between the top line and the midline, and we are going to roll right above the baseline. And I would have them trace this a few times. There's some activities right inside the teacher manual with having them maybe use the air, their pointer finger to use the air. Some lessons they have them using their elbows or even their feet to basically make large motions for practicing their letters. After they have finished practicing that, you would then go ahead and have them pull out their whiteboard. On one side of the whiteboard, we have the larger lines, smaller lines on the back. Some students just do better writing really big, some do better writing small. So you would have your child go ahead and practice writing their uppercase letter right onto the board. If you were using the manuscript cards, you would basically be doing the very same thing, showing them the roll stroke and having them practice both that lowercase and the uppercase letter C. After they've finished writing on their whiteboard and picking out which one they think looks the best, then there is a worksheet right inside of the cursive or manuscript student workbook that they would pull out and practice. And so you can see on the worksheet, there's many different lines on there. Again, the students, some write really well small, some write really well large. You can let them pick which one they feel better writing from. And then when they're done, they always can either circle or maybe put a smiley face or a star beside which one they think was their best letter that they wrote. After going through that handwriting instruction, they would then be learning a new phonogram for the day. The new phonogram is the phonogram ng. So you would have your child practice ng and say it a couple times, ng, ng. And then you would go through some exercises of finding out if it's a nasal sound or not. So in the teacher manual, it tells you to have them plug their nose and try to say ng. And it's very difficult. So they're able to identify that is a nasal sound. And then you would have them go onto their whiteboard that they have used for their handwriting practice. And now they're going to be using the whiteboard for practicing writing their new phonogram. They'll write it a few times, maybe circle the one that is their favorite for their handwriting and which one looks the best. After that, you're going to move into the Whistling Whales book. So for the page, you would bring that up and say ding, dong, bang, the gong. So you would read that to your child and let them try to make the sounds as well. If you're interested, there's also songs that go right along with each of these sounds. So there's a Whistling Whales songs that you can get right from the Logic of English website. So that can be a great addition while reviewing the new phonogram sounds. The next part of the lesson is actually using your game tiles while instructing your child for the new phonogram. So these game tiles, they're just cardboard tiles that come in the set, and a lot of homeschool parents will use magnet tape, as I did, on the back side of the game tiles, just so you can use something like a cookie sheet that I'm using, or if you have a magnetic board, you can stick those letters right to, and they're just easier for keeping the phonograms organized as well as using when teaching. So for today, the lesson is that I will be changing the initial sound and having my child read the new words that I'm forming. So this is the new phonogram ng. And so reading right from here, they want me to find the s, and then I'm going to find my I. Sing, and my child would sound it out, sing, sing. So they would sound that out, and I said, okay, well, what if I take off this S, and then if I replace it with a W? So let's go ahead and sound this one out, w-ing, wing. And then if I add my S back, but keep that W, now what do I have? I have swing. So then they have another list of other words that you can use with your child, like king and ding and ring, but you're basically forming the letters using these nice game tiles, and it just really breaks up the lesson, and the child has a lot of fun moving the game tiles around. After going through using those game tiles, the next part of the lesson is to be doing a worksheet right from the student workbook page. And this is page 102. And this one, they are going to be looking at the picture, saying the picture's name, and then writing the very first sounds to make the words. And so they would go ahead and complete that worksheet page. After that, there is a phonogram bingo. This is something that you'll see in many of the lessons, which is really fun for the kids. There is a bingo card that you can either use bingo markers, or you could use crackers or even Cheerios and have them cover up the bingo spaces as you say the sounds. A lot of times my family would just use this as a giant tic-tac-toe board, so that's fun too. But do whatever works, and you are going to be practicing those phonogram sounds with your child. After completing the phonogram bingo, that would be the end of one of the lessons here at my home. And I'm talking about a kindergarten age student going through all this information. They're sitting there for a while. That's a great ending point for my kids. So if you have an older child that you're just trying to move quicker through the program and they're able to still sit there and keep going, of course, keep going with them. That's fine. But if you have that younger child, it's okay to put the brakes on and close the books for the day and then start right there with spelling for day 2. Moving into day 2 starts with spelling and spelling analysis. So this is a process that you would work with your child on with segmenting the words, as well as finger spelling, and be able to give them clues for when they go to actually spell the words. So for the words today, there are 5 words, and 3 of them they really want the child to go ahead and write, and 2 are optional. Since I'm breaking these lessons over 2 days, I always did 5 words anyways, because I'm like, we've already taken a break, why not? So do what works with your family. But for the first word, thing, I would say the sentence, what is that thing? And then I would ask my child to segment the word thing. And so I would use my hand and they would go, So you can see here I have 2 fingers up for my th sound, a single finger up for my sound, and 2 fingers up for my sound. So from that, my child will have a clue what sound is a 2-letter phonogram that goes th. And so they would go ahead with their whiteboard and go ahead and write the th. Or if they're, taking a break from handwriting for the day, you could use those game tiles as well. So they would use those to form the words, but they would write your th, then they write your and they write your thing. So from that, I would then go over to my whiteboard and I would ask my student to segment the sound for me this time. And so they would come back and go ing, thing. And so I would go ahead and write that on the board, and they would obviously verify that I spelled it correctly. And it's a great way of going through the spelling, that you're not just writing out a word for your child. Your child isn't just memorizing that spelling word. Instead, they're learning how the word is spelled by breaking it down by the individual phonograms. So you would go through all the spelling words on the list: thing, sing, clock, snake, and note. And then there's also instructions on your marking and how to actually have your child mark these phonograms. And that's really helpful for them too, as they're learning those phonograms, so they can actually see them by underlining multi-letter phonograms as they're going through the B level. The very next part of the lesson is going through one of the Foundations B readers. Now, for the readers, there are 2 types of readers. There are the actual Foundations B readers, as well as the Young Artist Series B readers. Now, I love that there are so many readers as part of the B program, because as your child is starting to learn more multi-letter phonograms, it's easy for you to want to hand your child maybe a book or a step reader that's at the library, but then they're going to be seeing words that they don't know certain phonograms, and it can cause some frustration because they want to start reading, but then they can't actually read the books that you're handing to them. And so what's great is by having the initial readers as well as the Young Artist Series is tons of practice for your child for reading, and they are only presented with the books based on the phonograms that they've already learned as they're progressing through B. And then you can obviously go back and have them practice the readers as you're just strengthening those new multi-letter phonograms. So for the lesson today, it is for reader 4. It is Can Pete Pick a Pet? So included in Foundations B is a lot more comprehension questions than maybe you saw in some of the little early readers that the student was creating during the Foundations A program. So B is going to go into more comprehension questions, so you know that your students actually understanding what they're reading. So for this one, you would pull out the reader, and it's Can Pete Pick a Pet? You would ask your child what the title is, you would have them read it, and after finishing page 1, you would ask the question, what is Pete thinking about getting? So you're actually asking questions as you progress through the whole entire reader, and this is really helpful to making sure your child's really understanding what they're reading. There is a challenge as part of this lesson. The challenge is for your student to write a story titled The Pet Store, and for them to be able to draw some illustrations and pictures, as well as describing what type of pet store that they would have. Through Foundations B, you're going to see a lot of these challenges, and I really highly recommend taking the time, even if that means slowing down a little bit, to do these challenges, because these early writing exercises and challenges are just perfect for your young student. You know, even if they're at the point that they're not fully able to write, you're still asking them to tell you a story, and you as the parent can sit there and write it out for them and then have them illustrated. It is a great addition to the B level, and so don't skip out on those challenges. During Foundations Level B, you are going to be introducing your child to some very simple and introductory spelling rules. These spelling rules are written right inside the teacher manual, and they are then reinforced as you continue through the Foundations program. Introducing early spelling words will really help as they are starting to learn those multi-letter phonograms and how to form their spelling words. Additionally, through the program, you are going to continue using things like your game cards. Your game cards can come in either your cursive, your manuscript, and then it comes in book face. So that's dependent upon what set you ordered. So if you ordered the cursive set, you're going to be getting the cursive card with the book face card, versus if you are going to be ordering a manuscript set, you would have then the manuscript card set with the book face card set. So these types of cards and games are included all throughout the Foundations B level. Things like playing Memory Match or playing Go Fish, just fun little games for them to do for matching up, so they're able to see, you know, what does a cursive letter G look like compared to that book face G, and they're be able to make that match. And then also just reinforcing, practicing making those sounds. And you have these cards not just for the single letter phonograms, but also for the multi-letter phonograms as you're introducing the new sounds. So that is a complete lesson through Foundations Level B, and I hope that was really helpful for you to be able to see the material, the flow of the lesson, and just how everything was laid out. If you find yourself needing some additional resources while you are teaching, there's a lot available to you through the Logic of English. Go to the Logic of English website and check out the interactive phonogram chart. This phonogram chart, you can click on the phonograms and actually hear the sounds the phonograms are making, and that is very helpful for you as the teacher to maybe listen to those ahead of time prior to teaching, just so that you are teaching those correctly. You can also just sit your child down and let them click around on the phonogram chart too and practice those sounds, and so that can really help. Any questions about Logic of English, or you just want to learn some more, go check out that information. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for watching.